From the most trusted names in local news, KDPG Sunday Edition.
Good morning and welcome to the KDPG Sunday Edition. I'm Megan Schiller. By car, by bus, by T, and by bike, there are all kinds of ways that Pittsburghers get around. And because of that, many local groups want to help shape the future of transportation. From the Parking Authority to the Port Authority, Bike Pittsburgh, and Sustainable Pittsburgh, they all want to know how do Pittsburghers commute as they plan for the infrastructure that the region will need in the decades to come. And for that information, those groups will turn to our guest this morning. Isaac Smith is the Pittsburgh 2030 District Senior Director. He constructed and conducted the survey called Make My Trip Count that compiles the transportation habits of Pittsburghers. We are also joined by Jerry Micco, Senior Assistant Managing Editor for the Post-Gazette. So nice to have you two with us this morning.
Thank you for having me.
So I guess the first question that we have to ask is, what's the whole meaning behind the survey, and who decided that you wanted to conduct a survey in the first place?
It's a great question. The Make My Trip Count survey came out of a program called the Pittsburgh 2030 District. It's an initiative to reduce energy, water, and our third metric is around transportation emissions. So, being the data nerd of the group, we realized that we need to collect data in order to inform how is our progress against that baseline. So this is an initiative that started way back in 2014, actually, with a lot of different partners around the region to really start to think about what are the questions we need to be asking, what sort of data do we need to be collecting, and then how are we making sure that these results are actionable.
How many people responded?
Over 20,000 people responded, and this is really important because this captured about 10% of all the commuters that come into downtown and Oakland on a given day, which is our goal is to have a representative sample set that we can really draw upon to make decisions moving forward.
When you think about moving forward, and this is what this whole process is about, what do you see? What is the one thing that these folks told you or that you think that they want to have, commuters want to have in 2030?
Sure. I mean, I think one of the most interesting things that came out of the survey and the results is we don't have a typical 5 to 9 or 9 to 5 commuter anymore. We have folks that are making multimodal decision making throughout their individual trip or throughout their individual week. We have a lot of folks that are taking maybe driving alone 1 day a week, taking bus 2 days a week, taking a bike a third day a week. So the idea that transportation is changing with regard to decision making and accessibility, I think is really critical, and we need to be able to inform that decisions moving forward with support it with data. I think people, especially moving forward, we're seeing a landscape change with regard to we have ride-sharing services now. We have a growing industry of working remotely and working from home. And how do these things really affect our workforce and affect our commuting habits?
Especially some people will work from home for just a day, maybe a Friday, maybe a Monday. I was surprised to see that even though more people are taking the bus than the T, people enjoy their experience on the T more. Did anyone say as to why that was?
I think whether it's a perception or it's real, I think that the T has this idea that it's really nice. You know, it's maybe cleaner or it gets you to your destination faster. You know, I think people use the bus more because of the accessibility. The T is only serving a certain portion of the city. But overall, people were both satisfied with the bus and the light rail service from the folks that were actually using it.
What do you see as the biggest issue standing in the way of this getting done? Right away, I want to say money. That's always number one. But what other issues do you see from the survey that you saw, like, this is going to be a problem going forward?
Sure. I mean, money, obviously, number one. But I think through this survey, we really want to make equitable change, right? We want to make sure that whatever services we're increasing or providing or accessibility needs is really for everyone. So through this survey, we asked a lot of secondary questions around demographics and location and what are barriers that you see through your commute in order to really make changes that will be beneficial to everyone and not just folks that live in already well-represented commuter sheds. So I think we know off the top of our head those sheds that don't have as much access, maybe in the north. We see a pretty strong cohort of drivers coming from the north, and those that are a little bit further out on the suburban rings, there's not as much public transit available for them. So in many cases, they're forced to drive, single occupancy trips.
Were you surprised that a lot of people were saying that they were driving in, but they always had someone else in their car with them?
Yeah, I think just shy of 7% of folks are carpooling or van pooling. We have some strong partners with Commute Info and SPC who operate some ride-sharing services, and we're seeing in our market today an influx in additional ride-sharing services where they're taking real-time data to figure out how people are coming and going, and then partnering you with folks that might be close by to you. I think the biggest concern for people that are taking carpool or public transit or biking is that kind of that access to getting back home or needing that quick trip. A lot of the folks that drive alone said that they drive alone because it gives them that flexibility. Whenever they need to leave or they need to do something, they might have kids at home, so driving seems like the best option. But I think we're seeing through technology and through kind of a changing landscape that there is options to provide that flexibility in your commute.
I wanted to follow up on that, about that, because it is a heavy commuter city. So how do you get groups together? How do you try to get people in the next 10 years to be thinking, carpooling, van pooling, things like that? What's the next steps?
Sure. I mean, I think one of the next steps is communicating the data. So we have a giant spreadsheet of this, over 6 million data points, which is absurd, but how do we get that to be more actionable? So what we've done is we created this dashboard. It's a publicly available dashboard. It allows people to go on, really explore the data and get interested. Because I think the idea of changing your commuting habits is a little bit difficult and sometimes scary because you do the same thing or you're used to these habits. But getting information around, other folks in my neighborhood are maybe biking or walking, and I didn't know that before. So now seeing, I think, data that's a little bit more approachable and how I can use it is kind of the first step in getting people talking about how we can make changes.
Did people ever get into their fears of switching? I know a lot of people maybe would fear taking the bus. They would worry, oh, it takes longer, or it's not as clean as my car. Did anyone elaborate on why they're making the decisions that they're making?
Yeah, I think going back a little bit was that flexibility and that fear of not having access or a trip available, whether it was the bus or maybe you're biking and you're far away and you can't get back. And even what we're seeing, I think, is a shift in, we asked some questions around electric vehicles as this industry continues to grow and people's kind of hesitancies to shift to electric vehicles being, again, that kind of fear of not having a charge or not being able to get somewhere. So I think through this data, we're really hoping to maybe allow for people to realize that, that is a fear, but I think there's opportunities to solve that, programs that are available to really maybe allow for that accessibility.
So what's the best case scenario for your organization in this entire effort? Is it to get X number of people more into public transit, or that they'll buy electric cars in the next 10 years? Are going to be making more of them. So what do you see as an end game, or what you'd like to see happen?
Sure. From the Green Building Alliance perspective in the Pittsburgh 2030 District program, we're really in the market of reducing CO2 emissions. So our metrics, we have the energy, we have the water, and then transportation is a CO2 emissions reduction. So through this survey work, we're really capturing that data and trying to improve our air quality and really align with some of the goals around climate that we have here in the city. Then we have lots of partners that are more focused on transportation, and really through this effort, we identified that CO2 emissions is only a small part of all of this transportation data. So our hope is that we can partner with folks like Pittsburgh, Port Authority, the city, the county, which are already strong partners of ours, to really equip them with the data. And then the next step through the public dashboard is to equip the public. We want people talking about this. We want to have people informed so that they can go out and ask for things that they need and want, and it's in a way that it is helpful for everyone.
I feel like that's such a dividing topic, the bike, when you say bike Pittsburgh and the bike lanes,
Sure
and some people love them and are so about them, and other people are not. So what did the bikers say? We didn't really get into that yet.
Yeah, no, the biking cohort's interesting. They're well represented in the survey, and they're the group that is most likely to be a 5-day-a-week bike commuter. Whereas we think about car drivers, maybe they're driving 3 days a week and they take the bus 2 days a week. The bikers, they're hardcore bikers, right?
They are.
And in many cases, they're biking throughout the winter months. They're biking on average about 4 to 5 miles. And in many cases, the perception is the commute isn't as safe as it could be. So I think in order to really shift additional folks into biking, or even thinking about that as an option, we need to improve some safety around that. And one other thing would be the first mile, last mile issue. We talked a little bit about the light rail, and maybe it's hard to park at the light rail or get to the light rail. So thinking about how we can maybe leverage biking as a means to get to another point where you can hop on a bus or hop on a T to kind of solve that last mile, first mile.
A lot of moving parts. Who brings it all together, and how you have many partners, so then they all have interests too. But how do you bring that all together? What's the best way you think that can be done? Is it a government-private consortium, or how do you see it?
Yeah, I mean, I think, here in Pittsburgh, we have a strong nonprofit partnership with a lot of players in the transportation world. We have a strong government with the mayors and a lot of private partners through the Pittsburgh 2030 district. We have over 540 buildings who are committed to reducing their transportation emissions. That's a lot of buildings. And if you look at the map, it's really focused, those buildings kind of populate in downtown and Oakland. So we have a lot of the key players. And I really think through my position, we're really trying to equip people with data in order for them to make better decisions. A lot of folks don't even know where their employees live, where they're coming from, how they get to work. So start with allowing them to engage in that conversation through some easily accessible data.
All right, well, I'm glad that they're probably really glad that you're dealing with all the data so they don't have to, but we really appreciate you coming on and talking to us about it. Very interesting topic.
Thank you, I appreciate you having me.
All right, well, coming up, when we come back, we have historic buildings in the Pittsburgh area that could be in jeopardy and the people that are pushing to save them. That's coming up when the KDPG Sunday Edition continues.